right, Blake, it's time for the continuation of where the last episode left off. We obviously recapped all of the action that occurred in the last weekend of college basketball, but now it's time for our first preview video of the month of March. We got a lot of games going on this week to round out the regular season. We'll have a separate weekend preview for Saturday and Sunday, the regular season finales, and we'll also have a video coming out about the conference tournaments that are taking place this weekend and throughout the week as well. But looking strictly at this Monday to Wednesday slate that we've got going on, there's a couple of decent games that we'll hit on, and we'll start with tonight, Monday, March 3rd, Duke and Wake Forest. They're squaring off at Cameron Indoor tonight. Blake, this one may not need much of a preview because I think Duke's going to do what Duke does, so I'll let you have the floor on this one, but I will be very stunned if Wake Forest makes this a game, truthfully.
Yeah, I'm going to write this in as a Duke win right now, but, I mean, if you're a Demon Deacons fan, this is a must-win because there's Wake Forest is sitting that next four out right now. So, I mean, if they can somehow pull this game off with whatever voodoo magic they come up with for this one, then you definitely could be seeing them jump up to, like, the first four in, or last four in, whatever. But, yeah, I don't think they pull this one off, and I think this is where their tourney hopes come to die.
Yeah, this is not really in an ideal spot for Wake Forest to be in. They obviously are very undermanned compared to Duke and just overall talent. When they faced off in January, it was kind of a close game, but that was also a home game for Wake Forest, which is much different than walking into the buzzsaw that is Cameron Indoor. I guess if you want to look at one slight positive, if you're Wake Forest, I don't think Tyrese Proctor is going to be available in this one. He's still trying to navigate through that injury. I know Shire said he doesn't have a timetable right now, but they do expect him back. But I guess, Blake, the pathway to success here, if you're a Demon Deacons fan, is Hunter South is just going to have to take advantage of that guard matchup with Duke being a man down and have a legacy kind of night. But even still, I don't know if the guys around him are going to have enough to overcome all the talent on that Duke squad.
No, I don't think they do at all. Yeah, I mean, besides Hunter Salas and Hildreth, I don't think they have enough to be able to overcome the Blue Devils here.
Spread's currently listed at 19.5 in favor of Duke. Do we think they covered that?
That's favorable. That's favorable because, I mean, Wake Forest is going on the road here. I don't know if it'll be 19.5, just because this is going to be a team that's literally fighting like for their life here down the stretch. So it could be a little closer, but I think Duke wins and they cover it.
Yeah, it's kind of now or never for Wake Forest, but I also agree. If I'm a betting man, I'm taking Duke to cover in the spot without really much hesitation. But a matchup as well for Monday night that really you would think when you look at it on paper, just these two names, you'd think it would have much more of an appeal to it. But it really doesn't because, like I said on the last episode, Kansas, they've been the punching bag of this podcast lately, just stinker performances lining up one after the other. Bill Self continuing to just seem like he's checked out for this year and kind of waving the white flag. They're going to travel to Houston, the number 3 team in the country. Houston, obviously, we remember that memorable game earlier in the season when they went into Allen Fieldhouse and won in double OT. I don't think it's going to be this close this time around, though, Blake. I actually think Houston might run away with this one in really a dominant fashion because Houston's playing the best basketball of just about anybody right now.
For sure, and Houston's won 8 games straight. Kansas has lost, I think, 3 out of their last 5, and I think that's the biggest difference between these teams. Houston's hitting their strides right at the perfect time with the Big 12 conference tournament coming up, and then you got March Madness, and then Kansas. They're sitting at, I think, a 7 seed right now in the NCAA tournament. So,
6 or 7, yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely not looking good right now, Kansas. And like you said, that game last time they faced off, I think it was in like mid-January. That game was a thriller. It should have never went to OT. Kansas probably is going to come out hungry. The line's at like 9.5 favored for Houston in this game, but I think it's going to be, or I think it's going to be a little closer than that, just because Kansas is going to be coming out hungry. You don't want to lose 4 out of your last 6 games, especially being Kansas. Like, come on, this is one of the most historical programs in college basketball, and you're being led by one of the greatest coaches in all of the sport, with that being Bill Self. So, yeah, I do think this game's going to be a lot closer than 9.5. I think it's going to be like a 5-point game. Yeah, it's on the road at Houston. Houston's playing their best ball. Yeah, Kansas has sucked lately, but I do think this is a game that if they want to prove themselves down the stretch, this is a moment they have to.
Yeah, I'll note for Kansas too, Shaquille Moore, he's out tonight. That got announced earlier in the day. Not a brutal loss for Kansas, but obviously that takes a little bit of a dent to their overall depth. I want to believe that this game will be close because Kansas is obviously, when they're good, it's good for college basketball. You want to see them being in these competitive games with the likes of Houston. And this is a battle of two really big names in the Big 12. But at the same time, with the way Houston's playing and the fact that they're taking it to their home court for this edition of the matchup, it just kind of feels like it has the writing on the wall of the Houston statement game to kind of take over the Big 12 from Kansas, where Kansas in years past has really been the center point of that conference. So I think that Kelvin Sampson's crew is going to come out hungry. They've already got a share, at least, of the Big 12 title. I believe they have it outright, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah.
Or they're getting close to it if they haven't already. So Houston, one of the best teams in the country all season long, the best team in the Big 12. I don't think there's much doubt about that. I think they're going to do what they do. Jawan Roberts, last time around against Kansas, he took it to Hunter Dickinson all night long. He won that matchup fair and square, and then you had your guys like Emmanuel Sharp and Milos Uzon making big shots down the stretch, and then it was just a really great performance there on the road, and I think they're going to be able to replicate that with the home crowd on their side. But moving over to the SEC on Tuesday night, Auburn, they are going to Texas A&M. Blake, I alluded to this one on the last episode. Texas A&M, a team that's reeling right now. This is probably the worst possible scenario you can have with the Auburn freight train rolling into town. I don't really envision this game being that close. I kind of see the way that this game could be sort of like the Kentucky game was, to be honest with you.
It might get even worse than that just because of how bad A&M has been, especially with their skeptical shooting down the end of the season. So, yeah, it definitely could be a game that gets out of hand. And who knows? Auburn might be without Denver Jones tomorrow night. I'm just putting it out there. I don't know anything, but, I mean, he had a bone bruise. Bruce Pearl didn't offer any timetable for him to come back. So, I mean, there's a possibility he sits out for a game because, I mean, why risk getting even, hurt even more in a game that really means nothing because Auburn's got the SEC regular season on lockdown. They got the number 1 seed basically locked down in the SEC tourney. They definitely have it locked down in the NCAA tourney. So, yeah, I don't think there's any shot that A&M wins this game, and I think this is going to be the game that they go 5 straight with an L.
5 straight L's in the month of March. That's never something to be enthused by.
No.
It's really just a bad time here for Buzz Williams to have the number 1 team in the country coming into your gym. But I guess if you want to spin it positively, at least you don't have to go to the jungle for this one because it could get even worse if it was at the jungle because I don't see them really having much of a chance in this game. Saturday when they play against LSU, I think that's going to be the get-right spot for them. But, hey, if Wade Taylor gets hot and they start playing the way that they were kind of earlier in conference play, they can make this a fight. Now, will they make it that way? I don't really know. Like you said, Denver Jones being out for Auburn, that could possibly put a damper on what they've got going. But, I mean, come on. When you've got Tahad Pettiford just plugged right in for Denver Jones, it's really hard to see much of a drop-off there. I think Tahad's maybe not as good of a defender as Denver Jones, but he's probably the better playmaker and scorer, in my opinion, at least. So Auburn, they're just a machine. When one piece goes down, they've got another peg to put just right in there and keep things rolling. I think that Bruce Pearl's going to put a big emphasis on not being complacent. That's just kind of the attitude he has as a coach. They've clinched the regular season title in the SEC, but obviously they're hungry for more, and I think Bruce is going to have them ready to go in a true road environment. They're going to be fired up for the moment, and I could see this one getting ugly, maybe like 15 to 20 points.
Yeah.
Comfortable win for Auburn, but hate to sound so chalky, but that's just the way that I envision this one going. But back to the Big 12, we talked about Houston and Kansas. We've got BYU going to Iowa State on Tuesday. Blake, BYU's been one of the hottest teams in the country lately. They've been trending all the way up ever since February and heading on into March now, and they're looking like a team that could be pretty scary if you see them in your bracket. And I think they could pose a bit of a threat to Iowa State here.
And Richie Saunders, man, he's been looking like one of the better players in the Big 12, if not the country as of recently. Like, he's been putting up crazy numbers against good teams. And then you got Fuzini Traore. It's hard to say his name, but I tried my hardest. He's been performing really well lately, too, at 20-10 against West Virginia and a blowout win. And Virginia's like a likely NCAA tourney team, according to Joe Lenardi's newest bracketology type of thing he shared on Twitter. So, yeah, this BYU team is scary, like you said. They're really, really good on the offensive end, and they're really good on the defensive end as well, honestly. So, yeah, I do think Iowa State, I think, has an advantage in this one, just with them getting back Keyshawn Gilbert and Curtis Jones over the weekend. They were both playing. They didn't really shoot a ton, but they played well. And yeah, I think Iowa State's just too good of a team, to be honest with you. And they got the home court advantage. So, yeah, those things together, I feel like it favors Iowa State in this one.
This is a pretty big time spot for Big 12 tournament seeding purposes because the winner of this game is going to insert themselves on the fourth place spot, which would give you a double bye. So, obviously, a very important game here as we wind down this regular season last week. BYU, they've been so hot recently, it's hard to pick against them, but with the road factor going on here, and then Keyshawn Gilbert and Curtis Jones coming back, that's just so crucial for Iowa State.
Mm-hmm.
They're a whole different team with Curtis Jones and Keyshawn Gilbert in the fold. Those guys really get things going, and they kind of piece that whole team together. They make everybody around them better. Milan Momcilovic, Taman Lipsey, everybody's play just elevates with those guys on the lineup. And we saw this team shorthanded a week or so back go to Houston and make it a competitive game. So I think that with them operating at full strength, presumably in this one, barring any last-minute injury report updates and whatnot, I think this is a good spot for Iowa State to get the job done. If this was at BYU, though, I think I would pick BYU, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
With the way they've been playing and they've played some of their best basketball at home, it's really hard to pick against them in that kind of spot. But this BYU team, Blake, they can't be slept on at all because the way they've been trending up lately, Kevin Young's got that squad rolling.
Definitely. And to do it in the first year with this program, get a high-level recruit, with that being AJ DeBansa, my bad, for next year. Like, this guy's putting together a hell of a resume so far in just his first season.
Yeah, he's definitely got that program moving in the right direction. And moving on from this game on into the Wednesday slate, over in the Big Ten, I mentioned Michigan as one of my losers of the week in the last episode. They're hosting Maryland after that disastrous game against Illinois, number 13 versus number 17. Blake, this is a big one for Michigan because they've got a date with Michigan State lined up for the end of the weekend. And like I mentioned earlier, in terms of the Big Ten title race, they got to get this one under their belt to keep themselves at pace with Michigan State and the Spartans over there.
And I don't think they do pull this one off, to be honest with you. I hate saying it, but Michigan's been trending down lately. They got beat pretty badly to Michigan State at Michigan, lost by 13, went on the road and put up 49 points against Nebraska, which, I mean, that game was a shit show. Really good defensive game if you like defense, but offensively, that game sucked. They fought back against Rutgers. Should have never been down by double digits at Ann Arbor to Rutgers anyways. They got blown out over the weekend against Illinois, and now they got a tough opponent with Maryland coming into town. So I do think they drop a second game at home in a row. Maryland's starting to play their best basketball. And the thing I'm really going to be like most tuned into is the front court battle. Julian Reese and Derek Queen for Maryland going against Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf. Like, that just screams super fun college basketball. Like, that's going to be a gladiator battle down in the paint.
Yeah, and we're looking at a Michigan team here. I mean, you mentioned they got blown out against Michigan State, the low-scoring affair against Nebraska, and then Namari Burnett saving the day against Rutgers. I mean, a couple plays go the wrong way. This is a team that's riding a 4-game losing streak into this matchup because if Rutgers makes a couple more shots, if Nebraska makes a couple more shots in that game, they come out on top. And they're just not playing their best basketball right now. It's really been a tough watch. I mentioned the concerns earlier about just beyond Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden, does this team have enough? And it just really concerns me the way they've been playing lately. It kind of makes you wonder if they truly do have enough. Where on the other side with Maryland, Derek Queen, he's been electric all season long. I really like what they've found in him there. He's just been a stud for them. And all around, just that supporting cast, they've got some dudes that can step up in big ways. Rodney Rice, obviously, he's been a quality piece for them this season. I think I'm going to roll with you here. I think Kevin Willard and Maryland get the job done. We may have just put the curse on Maryland by clean sweeping and going with the Terrapins here, but I think they're going to go into Michigan and get this one done, setting up that big matchup for Michigan and Michigan State on the weekend. That'll be one that I'm tuned into as well. But keeping it strictly with the week that we have, this is my favorite matchup that we've got on tap this week. Florida going to Alabama on Wednesday night, number 5 versus number 7. Blake, this is a really high offensive firepower kind of battle. It just has the makings of that written all over it when you got Walter Clayton Jr. and Mark Sears being pitted up against each other. We've mentioned the guards of Florida as being one of the best trios in the country. And then over on the Alabama side of things, I mean, Mark Sears, and then he's got Aiden Holloway backing him up. There's talent all across the board in this matchup, and I'm really excited to see how this one goes. This is going to be pivotal in deciding what the top 4 of the SEC looks like heading into Nashville for the conference tournament coming up next week.
This might be one of the most entertaining late season games in the regular season for all of college basketball. You throw out any rankings, you throw out every stat. These two teams are recently really storied college basketball programs. Nate Oates, unbelievable coach, going against Todd Golden, unbelievably young coach. Then you look at the rosters: Mark Sears for Bama, Aiden Holloway, LeBaron Philon, Grant Nelson, Cliff Omarui. The list just keeps going. Chris Youngblood. And you go to Florida, Walter Clayton,
Will
Richard. Yeah, I'm zoning out. You just keep going down the list. These are two unbelievably talented teams. Some of the best offenses in all of college basketball. So I do think this is going to be a super entertaining game. I'll be sitting down watching it for sure. And I'm going to give the edge to Alabama in this one just because I do think they can pull this one off. And with being at home, that definitely is at an advantage for the Crimson Tide here.
Go Gators, baby. I'm rolling with Todd Golden's squad.
I like it.
The concerns with Alabama just defensively, I know they had a better performance against Tennessee. That game kind of stayed in that 70s territory, but Florida, they're averaging about 67.2 points scored against them this year, whereas Bama, they're getting plus 80 in that term, 80.1 points per game against Alabama. So I think that defense, we've mentioned before, me, you, and Brandy, defense travels. I think Florida's defense is going to be able to travel in this one. They've got the playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. I just think that'll be able to counteract Alabama with Alabama's lack of being able to stop teams. But this is a high-powered matchup. I mean, on Evan Maiwaka, he's got Florida as the number 4 best team in the country, and Alabama right there at number 5. And this is also a battle of 2 guards that just got listed in the top 5 for the Bob Cousy Award for the top point guard in college basketball, Mark Sears and Walter Clayton. So if you want to distance yourself in that race against each other, this is a golden opportunity to do it. And I've been riding the Florida train all season long, so I got to stick with it. I said in the preseason that this team was going to surprise some people and be better than they were thought to be, and they've proved me right in every sense of the word, because they're looking like they might be poised to take a number 1 seed here. And speaking of number 1 seeds, this is a big time game in determining that, because you're competing. These 2 teams are competing kind of with Tennessee to try and snag a 1 seed, and I think that this is a key game in determining that. And you've got a chance here to distance yourself against the team that you're competing with on that 1 seed line. And I just think that Florida is going to be able to overpower Alabama with their ability to make more shots, and I also think be a little bit more stout defensively. But I will be tuned into that one on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. One of the best matchups we're going to get in the SEC this year, and I'm really excited for that one. Moving on, though, we got Missouri traveling to Norman, Oklahoma on Wednesday night. This is a underrated kind of matchup because Oklahoma, Blake, they're going to be fighting for their tournament lives in this one. They missed on a chance against Kentucky and Ole Miss on Saturday, so now it kind of feels like they're starting to approach do or die territory when it comes to the bubble if you're a Sooners fan.
Yeah, Joe Lenardi actually has them at the 69 overall spot and first team out.
Tough.
So, yeah, if they win this game, I think we can practically seal them as a NCAA tourney team. You can't screw yourself over with the last game of the season, though, and in the first round play of SEC tourney play. So, they do have to win this one. If they don't, then it's very well they could fall into the last 4 out. So I guess we'll have to be tuned in. I think Missouri wins this, though. I mean, Oklahoma, they did fight like crazy. They had that win against Mississippi State. They lost to Kentucky in a heartbreaker. But, I do think Missouri wins this one.
I'm really torn on this one. You can never count out a team that's playing desperate. And Oklahoma, they've got to be desperate right now because you're fighting for your tournament life. You got to find a way to get in. And it'd be a real shame if a talent like Jeremiah Fears doesn't get to see the big dance. I really want to see him and this Oklahoma team find their way into the tournament. But against a team that's as good as Missouri, I just don't think I see it happening. Overall, Missouri's just too good. Caleb Grill, Tamar Bates, Mark Mitchell, just so many guys on that team that can get you a bucket. Whereas compared to Oklahoma, I mean, they've got Jeremiah Fears, Jalen Moore. He's been pretty solid for them at times, but overall, it's just been really inconsistent as a whole, which is why they find themselves where they are right now, fighting for a tournament spot. And Blake, this team, I don't know if we really had super high expectations for them heading into conference play. But, I mean, when they came out of non-conference undefeated, for them to be where they are right now, it is a little bit of a disappointment, I would say.
I mean, I feel like we should have halted expectations. Granted, they were undefeated, but, like, the teams they played early on in non-conference weren't, like, crazy good. Like, they played Houston, but they lost that game by almost double or almost by 20. They lost by 13 in that one. Wait, I'm not even looking at the right game. My bad. Yeah, Oklahoma, like they lost to Providence, or who'd they beat early in the season? Providence, I think they beat like in a close game. I think they beat Louisville, if I'm not mistaken.
They did,
and that was like pre-injury. So yeah, they had some decent wins, but like there was like nobody crazy good. I felt like at that point, like Louisville wasn't expected to be this good, and I don't think they really hit their strides up until like mid-season, and like after those guys got injured. Just because like I felt like that like brought the team together, that brought like some form of cohesiveness. So they had to come together. But yeah, this Oklahoma team, they should have never had like crazy expectations. I do think it is wild though. They go from undefeated in non-con play to literally holding on for dear life, coming down the stretch of the season for an NCAA tournament berth.
Yeah, really, their three best wins on the year come against Arizona, Louisville, and Michigan. But beyond that, there's not really a huge body of work there. I mean, Providence, that's a okay win, not really the greatest one. They beat South Carolina, but I mean, everybody's done that besides Arkansas. It seems like they beat Arkansas, and then they beat Mississippi State as well. That was one signature win that they had on
They
the
beat
22nd.
Michigan. They beat Michigan and Arizona too. I guess that was like before they really took off. So I
Yeah,
mean, those are good wins, but I mean, even those teams like for being ranked and stuff, they're just I don't know. Those are a couple teams that like you look at and kind of think like they're kind of mid, respectfully.
yeah. I wish we could have gotten a little bit more out of the talent that Jeremiah Fears is. I feel like he could have shined if he maybe was at a different spot other than Oklahoma, but I don't want to dunk on Oklahoma. They've got a chance to get a real big opportunity here and steal one against Missouri. I don't see them getting it done, though. Missouri's just been too good all season long, and they're coming off of a weekend where they lost against Vanderbilt, so I think they're going to be a little bit more hungry. And I think that this sets up well for Missouri, and then they'll have that big matchup against Kentucky on the weekend. But it's the month of March, Blake, and that means Dan Hurley's favorite time of the year is here. This has been a month that's treated him well the last couple of years. His squad, it really hasn't been treating him well at all up to this point, sitting at 20-9. But they're hosting the number 20th ranked Marquette Golden Eagles in a Big East showdown here. This feels like all the makings of a classic Dan Hurley FU game, so to speak. I just feel like this is a spot where I would not be shocked at all if he gets one and tries to silence the haters a little bit moving into the month of March to let people know that he's still here and he can still have a puncher's chance when it comes to the tournament on Wednesday night. What do you see in this game, Blake? You think Marquette gets it done, or UConn's got the home court here, so this could be a UConn trap game for Marquette here.
Yeah, I think UConn sweeps in the regular season play against Marquette. They beat Marquette at Marquette earlier in conference play. Where is it? 77-69. And yeah, I do think UConn, they're starting to put together some good performances, I'd say. Solo Ball, he's one of my favorite players in the country, really. I said preseason he was going to be like a breakout star. He kind of has been a breakout star. He's done phenomenal this season for that team. And I think if Liam McNeely's clicking, if Alex Caraban's clicking, and they get some form of contribution from the bench in this one, I very well could see him beating Marquette because Marquette, to be honest with you, down the stretch, they've been kind of at times complacent almost. Like they're getting blown out by Villanova. They lose to Creighton by 10. So like, this team, I don't know, they got talent. They started off super hot in the year, and I just feel like they got to the point that they felt like they were in cruise control, but then like down the stretch, it hasn't really worked out for them going into cruise control. They did just blow out Providence and Georgetown, which are both really weak teams, but I guess those are good statement wins to say like, hey, we're still here. We're not a bad team. Like we're a good team. So get those wins definitely mean a lot for that Marquette team coming into a crazy environment, I'm sure, tonight at UConn and Stores. So yeah, I do think UConn wins this though.
I'm going to go with UConn too. This just has all the makes of a game that Dan Hurley wins. And I don't like to doubt Dan Hurley on this podcast because we know what he's capable of. But at the same time, I do kind of wonder if they'll be able to complete the sweep here because Marquette, I think, even if they lose this game, I think they're the better team overall. but it may just be one of those weird situations where you can't get it done against a team that you really should take care of business against. But I'm going to go with UConn in this one. I think they get one done and kind of make a statement heading into the month of March that they're still here and they've still got a chance to make some noise if all the pieces click together at the right way. But lastly, for the week preview, Blake, Tennessee at Ole Miss on Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. The number 4 ranked Volunteers, obviously coming off the big home win against Alabama. Jemai Mashack with a cold-blooded buzzer beater to kick off the month of March the right way. Wouldn't expect anything less from this month. But what do we think about this matchup? It's going to be a tricky one. They're going on the road to Ole Miss. So Ole Miss, they've had some letdowns as of lately. They didn't play their best against Oklahoma over the weekend. You can argue that maybe they deserved to lose that game. Ultimately, they really struggled against Auburn, but I mean, a lot of teams have struggled against Auburn. They were riding a 3-game losing streak until they got that win against Oklahoma, but they've also got some good results over the course of the year. Sean Padula, Matthew Morrell, Malik Dia, you can't count those guys out because if you do, with the intensity that they play out on the defensive end and the fact that they've got some guys that can go get a bucket too, they can keep things competitive and scrappy, especially against a team like Tennessee that at times struggles to get things going offensively.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I'm not going to lie. This Ole Miss team, they're 1-4 in their last 5 games. Sean Padula has been like the lone high point of this team. Like Ole Miss is just flat out sucked. There's no way of sugarcoating it. They struggled on the road against South Carolina. They won that game by 4. They got beat by 10 to Mississippi State at Ole Miss. They went on the road to Diet Memorial Gymnasium and lost by 5 to Vandy. They got boat raced by Auburn, one of the biggest losses in SEC play to Auburn. And then they, like you said, they somehow found a way to hold on and win that game against Oklahoma when they shouldn't have. And Tennessee has just been playing flat-out dominant basketball, and they're coming off a win against one of the best offensive teams in Alabama. And then, like, beforehand, you got the Vandy win. You got on the road at A&M. You got LSU. Those are all decent wins in a good conference. And then, yeah, I do think like Tennessee is going to stamp this game, seal it, sign it, put it away, and I think they win by like say 10. I think they do win by 10 here, just because of Ole Miss's recent struggles. I think Chaz Lanier, I think he'll have a decent game, but I do think this is going to have to be a game for guys like Zakai Ziegler and their bigs to step up here.
I'm going to take Ole Miss in an upset. I think this might be one of the upsets of the week. They have been having their struggles recently, but this Ole Miss team at times, too, they've looked very strong. They were in the top 25 for a bulk of SEC play. They've obviously fallen out and kind of lost their way right now. But I think that they might be able to get this one done here just because of the fact that I think they kind of play a similar way to Tennessee. Both these teams get after it on the defensive end. They've got some shot makers that can come in big for you. I think Sean Padula is going to get one going here, be on one, and find a way to upset the Vols with some hot shooting and the help of another person stepping up like Malik Dia maybe. I think that in the matchup of him versus Felix Okpara, give me Malik Dia in that one. I just think that this is a possible trap spot for the Vols here to close out the regular season before that last game of the regular season, obviously, for the Vols on Saturday when they're going to be taking on South Carolina. I would worry possibly about this Tennessee putting things in cruise control. They've got 2 teams ahead of them that they are clearly better than, that you think they're going to take care of business against. And the road games in the conference, man, these can never be underestimated at all. I think this could be a trap spot for the Vols. Maybe I'll be wrong, but Ole Miss, I'm going to make that my upset pick of the week. Give me the Rebels and Chris Beard to finish out that game strong and find a way to upset the Vols. But Blake, we're going to have a lot more to cover this week. This is only the beginning of the Traps covers. We got mid-major conference tournaments coming up that we'll be previewing. We've got a loaded weekend as well to close out the regular season. And then next week, all of the major conference tournaments are going to be underway. So this is really an exciting little period we've got going on here. Championship week has begun. Looking forward to covering it all with you, Brandy, Jack Sullivan, the whole full court trap crew. Maybe we'll get Hunter Kirk to have an appearance at some point. We're waiting on our mid-major
We need it.
correspondent to come through, but we need him on the pod. But yeah, we're locked and loaded, ready for March. But for now, we'll call it a day. And Mr. Blake Smith, thank you for joining me as always.
Sir.
This is the Full Court Trap signing out.